The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in this show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCAM, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome to episode 8 of America's Ass. School year's winding down, getting ready for summer, really excited. So, we have a special guest today. Please welcome Representative Kevin Verville. So, take a minute to introduce yourself to my audience.
Yeah, so my name's Kevin Verville. I'm a state representative from Rockingham 2nd District. So I represent Auburn, Candia, and Deerfield, and I'm currently serving in my 4th term as a New Hampshire state representative.
Okay, excited to have you on. Start with one of the big headlines of today and yesterday, technically yesterday. 3 presidential candidates have jumped into the Republican primary. Former Vice President Mike Pence, former New Jersey Governor Christie, and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum all announced yesterday. So what's your initial analysis on them?
So I'm surprised to see Governor Christie kicking around again. I don't support Governor Christie. I'm not a fan of Governor Christie. My guess is he's probably in it looking for some sort of appointment or job to come thereafter from whoever the selection is. Governor Burgum, I have to admit, for me, he's terra incognita. I don't know anything about him, so it's hard for me to comment. Other than, governors can become presidents, whether we've heard of them before or not. Bill Clinton is living proof of that, bridging the gap. And of course, Mike Pence is a former vice president, highly qualified candidate, good conservative. So wish him the best of luck.
Yeah. I just saw on Facebook today, Mike Pence is going to be in Derry on June 9th. He's going to be at LaBelle Winery. So he's already doing stuff. Christie announced his campaign in Manchester yesterday. Burgum hasn't announced anything to my knowledge so far. So yeah, like we both said, just widening the field, and it's going to be really exciting. So.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more people jumping in. I think it's going to be the wild, wild west on the Republican side. I think it'll be equally as interesting on the Democrat side with Mr. Kennedy rattling the cage, as it were. So it should be an interesting cycle.
Yeah, it's not going to be just Trump and DeSantis like many people thought it would, or hoped it would.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's really starting from square one again.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What do you think so far? Who do you think's the front runner? Do you think it's Trump? Do you think anyone's going to sneak from behind and take the front runner spot?
So the polls tell us that Trump is the front runner. The vibration on the line that I feel is that DeSantis has very strong support, and I think he would do a very good job. So I have to admit, when Trump first ran, I was very nervous. I perceived him as a populist, and I believe that populist candidates are potentially problematic because you don't know what they're going to do. That being said, after 4 years, I would say my populist fears were put aside. I think he did a very good job as president. And if we had 4 more years of Trump, it wouldn't break my heart. If we had 4 years of DeSantis, if we look at what he's done in Florida going forward as a model nationally, I certainly have no problem in that space either. To be quite frank, Mike Pence, I think, would do a fine job as well.
Yeah. Many people think that Pence betrayed Trump when he didn't overturn the election results. I don't think that, because that's what it said in the Constitution. So a lot of people aren't going to support Pence for that reason.
Yeah, when you hold elected office, you have to do what the rules of the office are, and you have to follow your conscience. And I fully believe that Mike Pence gave it full and careful consideration and did what he believed to be the best thing to do in that situation. And so, at this point, it is, to quote Hillary Clinton, at this point, what difference does it make? It's water under the bridge. So I would say we have to move on. And of all the issues that I may or may not have with Mike Pence, I'm not sure that even makes the list.
Yeah, and there's other candidates that still continue to campaign in New Hampshire too. Vivek Ramaswamy, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Yeah. What do you think of their chances?
So I have to admit, Vivek has got a very good message. So I don't watch TV, so all I've heard is audio clips, and he has a very good message. He resonates. I have several colleagues under the Golden Dome that have come out to support him. So, if anybody could break the pack, I think potentially he could. Nikki Haley, I don't know. She doesn't really check the box for me. I wish her all the best of luck. One thing I will say is her ground game is working very, very hard. They're working the phones, they're working the text messages, they're working the emails. They are trying to drive interest. They're trying to drive activity. So as far as a ground game that you need in New Hampshire, I think she's working that as hard as she possibly can, and I think that's the right strategy for New Hampshire.
Yeah, personally, I think Nikki Haley's the front runner to be vice president. And I think Vivek also has a good chance of making the cabinet as like Secretary of Commerce or something like that, or Secretary of Health and Human Services, whatever he wants, because he did biotech, so that would technically go under him. Christie could very well be a VP. Trump almost actually chose Christie as VP. He was in his final three along with Pence and Newt Gingrich, former House Speaker. So, yeah, what's your analysis on that?
Yeah, I think it's too early to really look at that portion of the chessboard. We don't even know who the players are. It's way too early. I'm interested to see who gets into the race, what everybody has to say, and how they work the crowd. I don't think you get really any good sifting till after New Hampshire, probably after the Carolina, if we go with a traditional schedule of first caucus in Iowa, first primary in New Hampshire, and then down to South Carolina. I think anybody that drops out before that, that's a miscalculation. I think you have to stay in for those first three races because lightning can strike.
Yeah. And we still have at least three candidates that I can think of off the top of my head that still have a decision pending. Former Michigan Congressman Mike Rogers, Mayor of Miami Francis Suarez, and former Secretary of Energy Rick Perry. They all still have a pending decision. And much to my surprise, and probably much to your surprise too, Chris Sununu has announced that he is not running for president. So I know you had a lot to say about that.
So that decision didn't surprise me at all. And I think he used the same calculus making that decision as he did when he made the decision not to run for the U.S. Senate seat. I believe that the governor is not interested in running in any political race where he doesn't have a very high degree of confidence that he will be victorious in that run. And when you look at this crowded presidential field, I think it would be clear to anybody that he would be more of a long shot than a shoo-in for sure. And so for that reason, I don't see him doing that. Right now, he's tied for the longest serving New Hampshire governor. He's tied with John Lynch at 4 terms. I fully expect Chris Sununu to run for re-election as governor. I fully expect him to get re-elected in another landslide, and probably his political high water mark will be longest serving governor in New Hampshire history. That's when I shake the snow globe, I mean the crystal ball, that's what I see.
Yeah, I thought he was going to run. I was pretty surprised when he didn't, but I do think he'll be a 5-term governor now that he's definitely not running for president. Anyway, we've exhausted that topic, so switching up, the CEO of CNN, that's a tongue twister, Chris Licht, is out at CNN. So this just keeps going with the cable news shakeup with Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson both getting fired same day. So, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, the problem with most of these, quote unquote national news outlets is that they're all singing from somebody else's hymnal, and it's not, they don't even give the appearance of objective reporting anymore, right? So everything that they're doing is skewed to the side that they want to get. I think the American population is at a point now where they see through that pretty clearly. I think they're disappointed with that. I don't think they're interested in that. And so, you know, the ratings at CNN are abysmal, and MSNBC as well, because they do it. You know, the Fox side is a little more mysterious. I think they want people that are singing the tune, and so that's, you're going to see more on that side of people that aren't carrying the water that the ownership of those networks want carried. But I think we'll see more of it, not less of it. What'll be interesting is to see how people like Tucker Carlson do outside of the mainstream system. Will they get the traction? Can they keep an audience? It'll be interesting to see, because if they can, cable news is going to have to be very, very careful about how they proceed in the future.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago, I talked about how Tucker is doing a Twitter show now. That's going to be a real experiment, because you kind of wonder, is Twitter going to switch forums, kind of be sort of a YouTube type thing? So
that's the question. Can you get a mega audience, a multi-million viewer audience, off of some other platform than cable TV? Nobody's really done it yet, but I think the time is right, and I think the time is close. You know, we don't even have cable TV at my house anymore. You know, my wife and kids watch TV, and they stream everything. That is the format that people are using. So I think you're going to see a sea change in broadcasting cable TV, like we've seen in the newspaper publishing business.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens. Former guest on the show, DJ Betancourt, pointed out that many people don't even, like you said, watch cable news anymore. They get their things from podcasts or talk shows like this, things like that. Yep. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're evolving toward that. Time's changing. So next topic, Target. So Bud Light had their little canceling controversy a while back. Now Target's having the same thing for a very similar reason. Yeah, they did a bunch of what people perceive to be, I guess, how would you put it? Too gay friendly? I don't know how to put it.
So customers don't owe a business anything, and a business owes everything to their customers. And in good old America, you can't force people to buy a product. So you have to market, you have to appeal to customers. And to do that successfully, you have to know who your customers are. You have to know who your base is, and that's, you know, that's who you're selling to. That's who you're marketing to, right? And a lot of these companies are choosing for whatever reason paths that do not align with the core values of their customer base, and so customers are voting with their wallets. They are walking away. The Bud Light thing is completely organic. As far as I know, there is no formal boycott Bud Light program being driven in any sort of top-down motion. People are simply choosing not to purchase that product anymore, to send a message of what they want and they don't want. They're doing the same thing with Target, and you know, the market finds a way. The free market always finds a way. So the question is, do you listen to your customers and change what you're doing to provide them what they want to buy, or you don't? And if you don't, it's a quick ride to the poorhouse, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. You summed it up really perfectly.
Right, so I'll go a step further, right? So I am a former Bud Light drinker, and I used to like craft beers and better quality beer, but I have acid reflux and it bothers my stomach. Cheap American light beer doesn't bother my stomach. And all nonsense aside, you know, if you gave me a half a dozen different brands of cheap American light beer, blindfolded me and asked me to differentiate them, I don't think I could. And I don't think the vast majority of people could. So when your product doesn't have that distinction, it is very easy for them to migrate somewhere else. It's not like there's not another product out there to pick from.
Yeah, like I said, I can't add anything to that. That was
Yeah.
perfect. So moving on to what you want to talk about. So on the way in, you were saying you want to explain what school choice is to my audience. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a long-term advocate of expanded school choice, and I've supported that and been vocal about that since my first campaign as for state rep. And we've had some really good bills brought forward to expand school choice in New Hampshire, and they've all focused on the state money, right? And the state money is like 20% of the pie. So the question dawned on me, right? The problem dawned on me 6 years ago. How do you access the local money? We fund local public education with local tax money in this state. And the state can't tell towns, communities, municipalities, school districts how they use their money. See, the state can't tell Derry, you're going to let money follow the child. Can't do it. So the question is, how do you do that? How do you get at that money? So I came up with a solution, and it's been pitched twice, and so far it's mostly, well, 2 years ago it's dead. This one is mostly dead. It's on the table, but that's where it'll die. My solution is enabling legislation. So allow a community to vote in favor or against letting local money follow the child. The first year I defined it as 80% of locally raised tax money, but that formula, because the way we fund education is strange, didn't work on the margin. So the really rich towns, the check would be way too big. In one town, Franklin, if they would have put the program together and a parent would have avowed themselves of it, they would have had to write a check to the school district for $16. So obviously that doesn't accomplish the goal. So I refiled the bill this year, setting it at twice state adequacy. So that works out to be close to $9,000 a year per kid, and that is more than enough to allow the vast majority of families to send their child, to virtually any school they want to. Maybe not Phillips Exeter, maybe not St. Paul's, but certainly it would make a lot of things available. The enabling legislation required a 60% approval at the local ballot box, so a supermajority. To repeal the program was the same thing, 60%. So because there's this theory that if you do, it's a runaway fiscal train. I don't believe that's correct. But just in case, right, there is an escape clause if a community chose to do that. Unfortunately, it's on the table, so the subject matter can't be brought back. The subject matter can be brought back. I'm sorry, it's on the table, so it can be brought back. So it'll be brought back next year, but with a 50-50 House, it's unlikely to happen. But that is my priority as a state rep. Is to try to get expanded school choice as enabling legislation and let communities, not the school board, but the voters decide if they want local money to follow the child.
So does this bill basically depend on the House margins? Like, do you think this would get passed if, say, there was a wider Republican majority in the House?
It would certainly stand a better chance. So we have the EFA program right now with the state adequacy grant, and that was passed under Republican control. The Democrats are not sympathetic to expanded school choice. They are sympathetic to monopoly public education occurring in a local public school. And so yeah, we need a better majority, or we need it to come to the floor of the House when a lot of Republicans are there and a lot of Democrats aren't. Just because something is unlikely, just because something's improbable, doesn't mean you don't try. Lightning can strike, so you fight the good fight, and we'll have the debate, and we'll see what comes of it.
I know it's really early, but do you think you're going to get a wider majority at the next election?
I don't know. Voters are funny things, and predicting their behavior is very, very difficult, especially more than a year out, a year and a half out, because so much can change. I certainly hope that we can get a stronger majority in the House, maintain a majority in the Senate. One thing, so I admit, I've been a critic of Governor Sununu, but one thing he's been rock solid on is expanded school choice, and so I would love to get a bill to his desk that he can sign for the benefit of New Hampshire children, New Hampshire students. Okay.
So the other bill that you're known for is the bill to legalize psychedelics, which did not pass.
So I had two bills. I had one bill to decriminalize cannabis. And so, in Concord, we like simple bills. We like bills that are easy for people to understand. And so the cannabis bill simply removed reference of cannabis from all New Hampshire statute except for medical cannabis, so that program could stay intact. We're way beyond the time for serious cannabis reform. The other bill that's also mostly dead but might rear back up is a scheme where the state becomes the pot dealer, right? So we do it like we do with hard alcohol, with spirits. I don't think that's a good vehicle. Originally, I intended to have one bill with cannabis and psychedelics, and because of the shift in popularity, I broke the psychedelics out. So the psychedelics bill is the same formula, right? It simply removes references to LSD, psilocybin, which is the active in magic mushrooms, and mescaline, which is the active in peyote cactus. Simply removing the reference so it's no longer a state crime, and if the feds want to come to New Hampshire and do it, that's fine. Both of those bills came out of committee, inexpedient to legislate, so recommended to the House to kill the bill. I overturned the ITL on the floor of the House, and I got my cannabis bill out of the House, and it went to the Senate, and the Senate killed it, which was the expected outcome. I was not so lucky to overturn the psychedelics bill. So one thing I'll say is anybody that thinks that this is, way out of line and we shouldn't be doing it, I would strongly recommend you to read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. It is a great survey of the history of psychedelics and psychedelic laws in this country. Please give this book a read and then come back to me with your opinions. I'm not a drug decrim guy across the board, right? So for me, there's two spaces. There's more drugs and there's non-more drugs. And more drugs are the drugs that when you do them and the more you do them, the more you want to do of them and the more that you do of them. So amphetamines, barbiturates, narcotics, opioids, those are more drugs. Those are dangerous drugs, have a high potential for destroying your life, if not being lethal, highly addictive, very dangerous. So those drugs need to be regulated. Cannabis, we know about cannabis. Cannabis is not addicting. Is it the smartest thing to do, health-wise and whatnot? No, certainly not. Prohibition on cannabis hasn't worked for the same reason it didn't work with alcohol. You can produce cannabis in all 50 states, right? You can grow it anywhere. Psychedelics are similar. So psychedelics are non-toxic, non-habit forming, non-addictive. In fact, psychedelics have a very unique control point that when you do them, you build a very rapid tolerance. So if you take psychedelics repeatedly, you do not get the effect of the psychedelic anymore. So it forces you into timeout. Are psychedelics without danger, without risk? No. I mean, nothing is, right? If you are predisposed to schizophrenia, doing psychedelics in a non-controlled setting is probably not a good idea. So the bill didn't pass, but I will be filing another bill in the fall for medical psychedelics. And so there'll be more on that coming out. But basically, it's going to follow our recipe for legalized cannabis, right, for medical cannabis. But it'll also have another leg, which, after I file the bill, I'll be more forthcoming with what that's going to look like. For me, cannabis decriminalization, psychedelics decriminalization is not an if, it is a when. It takes time for a new generation to come in that's more open-minded, and so I'm starting the ball early.
So one question I have, and some other people may have it that are, iffy toward the bill. They don't know if they'd like it yet. What would the state do to try to curb the youth usage of it? Because I know at Pinkerton, there's drug rings at Pinkerton. Like,
okay, so
you don't use the bathroom during, in between.
That is a fantastic question. So first of all, the Cannabis and Psychedelics decrim bill were for people 21 years old or older, right? So not intended for minors, and in fact a small population of the adult group. Let's come off the psychedelics a little bit and let's talk about the cannabis, right? So there's a strong contingent that wants to keep cannabis illegal. The problem is you're forcing people, especially young people now, to go to the black market to get their cannabis, because they're going to get their cannabis. The legal market would be cannabis, maybe psychedelics. But the legal market would not have cocaine, amphetamines, barbiturates, heroin, fentanyl. When we keep these compounds on the black market only, we are forcing our youth to go to the black market to acquire what they're going to acquire, and the odds of them getting introduced to other, harder, more dangerous drugs increases, not decreases. So in fact, prohibition is forcing our kids to go to drug dealers that are going to trade in other things that are more deadly. So I think it's more harmful in general for society to keep these relatively safe compounds locked up and classified with these other compounds that are not as safe.
Okay, those are good points. I'll definitely take those into consideration. So we are almost out of time. This has been a great episode. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation. It's a great show. I enjoy watching it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I guess we're pretty much done here. So I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ass. Thank you for watching.